Hi there. We are here at AAA Hobbies and Crafts, as you saw. We are on Route 30 in Magnolia, New Jersey, and we're here for our Sunday afternoon Facebook Live. And today, I thought we would discuss something that I get a lot of questions about in the store, and it's a real basic element of model building, crafting, things of that nature, and that would be glues and adhesives. So, what's glues and adhesives? What do they have to do with what we're talking about here? Well, everything we build out in the store, you have to use something to put it together. And when someone comes into AAA Hobbies and they pick up a plastic model, let's say they grab this guy here. Oops, sorry about that. They grab this big trailer kit and they say, well, what do I need to put it together? That's always the first question. And we say, you need paint and glue. And the second question I always get is, well, what kind of glue do I need to put this together? So I thought what I would do today is just do a real basic discussion of the different types of glues and cements that we sell here and what their applications are. And this is not the end-all to a discussion of adhesives or glues. It's just basically my experience. I'm going to tell you what I use and what I use them for, and that way you'll have a better idea of what you need when you're building a kit or whatever you're gluing together. So let me start out with plastic modeling. When you buy a plastic model, and I grabbed some parts here from a couple kits. This is a Revell Corsair kit, and the first thing I want to point out, when you buy a model, you're going to need glue, and we'll help you pick it out, or you'll figure it out from listening to me today what kind you want to use. The first thing you want to do is look inside of the instructions, and they will tell you, they like these sheets usually have little international symbols for what you do in the kit, and these two right here are really important. This is glue, and this is don't glue. So what you want to do is you want to note as you build your model. I'm going to pull it out here and see if I can find some call-outs like that in here. You can see as we go along here, each step has that little glue mark. And that means all these parts are going to be glued together, except for, you can see down here, it has the don't glue sign. The don't glue is pointing at these parts that go in that need to spin or need to be free. So when you're building your model, take note of when to glue and when not to glue. That's really important. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at the plastic cements that we have here. I'm going to start right here, and you can see this is a really big selection of glue, and this is all for plastic models. And you're going to say to yourself, oh my gosh, there's so much here, what do I pick? Basically what it comes down to with plastic glues for plastic models is there's two types of glue. There's a tube glue, which is the good old favorite standby that we all used to buy. Oops. I'm destroying my bench here. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Very unprofessional, eh? There's basic tube cement, which is the kind of glue that we used to go down to the hardware store or the drugstore and we'd buy our kit and we'd get a tube of glue. Tube glue, and I've got 3 samples here, and I'm going to show them to you. The first one is this blue tube. The blue tube is non-toxic cement, so that if you have trouble with fumes from the glue has, I think, what's called toluene in it, which is the chemical that reacts to make things stick together. Well, they have a milder form of that here. So if you have trouble with vapors or smells or anything like that, you might want to buy non-toxic glue. And the red tube is the regular cement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my little, I'm having trouble today. Grab my little tools here. And what I want to show you is, and this one here, this blue one, is basically the same as this red one. This is Testor's tube cement. This is Revell tube cement. So they're basically the same thing, just 2 different manufacturers. And the way tube glue works, you take the top off. You can see it's got a little pointy tab there, or tip. And when I squeeze it, you good? Mm-hmm. When I squeeze this, you'll see a little blob comes out. Right? And that blob doesn't move around too much. That's because it's a gel. In other words, this glue is like a gel. And the way you use it, and let's put 2 pieces of this airplane together. Now, I haven't done tube glue for a long time. I usually use liquid cement, so bear with me here. I hope this goes well. you take your tube cement, and you'll notice the first thing that I always do when I'm gluing something together is I test fit the parts. In other words, I want to make sure I understand how these things go together before I put glue all over them and then, make a mistake. So I'll just test fit this, make sure I know exactly how it goes together. And there's always locator pins on the model and holes so you can line them up. And with a tube glue, you basically just run it, and you got to be careful because you don't want to get it on the outside of the model. You basically run it along the inside edge a little bit. And I'm going to do this, and then hopefully you'll be able to see it. And then you go down. Anywhere where there's a pin, I like to get some on. And like I say, I like to be really careful to get it on the inside, not the outside of the model. So I've put my glue all along that seam line. And then I just stick them together. And this stuff does smell. I mean, it's got a smell to it, so you want to open the windows or do it in a well-ventilated area. And then you basically just squeeze it together and you hold it until it dries. So that's tube cement. That's how a tube of glue works. It's pretty basic, it's very elementary, but I need to explain it. Now, the next step above a tube of glue would be liquid cement. And liquid cement is just what I say. It's I'm going to set this down. It's a liquid that looks like water. I don't know. Actually, you can see it in these bottles. You see how it's, when I shake it, it's very watery? The reason for that is this glue is a stronger glue, and it uses capillary action to run down the seam of a model. Let me explain that a little bit. You notice when we used the tube glue, we just squeezed it out, put it along the line. Now, I'm going to show this to the camera here. If you look, you can still see the seam line on this. Even squeezed together, what's going to happen is this tube cement's going to bond the two pieces together, and it dries fairly quickly, but it doesn't soften the plastic up very much to weld it together. It just basically puts a bond in between the two pieces of plastic. That's tube cement. What liquid cement does, and I really like liquid cement because of this. I can take two parts of a model. These are the engine halves from a Messerschmitt. And I'm going to just, instead of using the tube glue and putting it on like this, I'm going to put the two halves together. Right? So these are together already, but I don't have any glue on there. The way a liquid cement works, I'm going to open it up. I don't want to spill anything. Most liquid cements come with a brush inside the cap. You can see it says a little tiny brush. And what you do is, instead of putting the glue on first, you put your two halves together, and then you take the tip, the brush, and you run it along the seam line where the two parts meet. And I usually do one or two little coats. And what happens is the capillary action draws that glue right down into that seam. And when I squeeze it, I'm going to do this, and you know what I'm going to do just so okay, don't mind me. I want to grab my eyes. When I squeeze this, I don't know if you can get the camera in tight enough, but you notice plastic starts to come out. That's because liquid cement softens the plastic, and when you push it together, it welds together. So instead of tube glue putting a bond in between, this actually fuses the two pieces of plastic together. So that's the advantage of liquid cement. Liquid cement softens the two halves and bonds them together. And the other nice thing about liquid cement is you can test fit your parts, get everything together, and then apply it. And the other real advantage of liquid cement is when you're doing a really big piece. And one of the reasons I brought this big tractor trailer kit out was to show you something. Let me push these back a little. This is the bottom of the tractor trailer. This big, you can see it right there. It's the reefer that goes behind a Big Mac truck. These are the sides of the truck bed, or the side of the trailer, and they have to fit into the bottom or chassis of this trailer like this. Right? Now, if I wanted to use tube cement, it would take me all day to sit and get it on it, and I think this tube cement would probably dry before I got it all the way down the whole seam line. It would be kind of inefficient to try to use a tube glue on this. Whereas if I took liquid cement, like the Tamiya or any of these others, and I just take the brush and I run it, I'm not going to do this for real, but if I take my tube cement and I just run it down along the seam line, it softens the plastic up and it glues it together as I do it. The capillary action draws that liquid cement down this whole long line. So it's much more efficient to use a liquid cement on something this long, you know, to glue it all together. So that's another reason to use liquid cement. So plastic models, there's tube glue, non-toxic tube glue, regular tube, liquid cements, and the different liquid cements that I have here. I have Tamiya cement, or Tamiya. A lot of people say Tamiya, some say Tamiya. Tamiya makes different viscosities, or you know how watery it is. Let's say they have extra thin. They have regular. The regular is a little bit thicker. It's got a bigger brush, I believe. Yeah, it's a much bigger brush. So you can go in, and this stuff here, the thicker stuff, you can kind of use like tube cement. You can go in and coat it around the part before you put them together if you really want to do that. That's why you have the thicker liquid cement. And the thin cement is the stuff that draws down the seam line. You put a blob on and you'll see it run down, capillary action. They have extra thin cement as well. And the extra thin cement is quick setting. It dries a little bit faster than this stuff. So various different types of liquid cement. And just to make it a little more confusing, there's various manufacturers of liquid cement. There's AKI, AK Interactive, they make liquid cement. Revell has their own liquid cement, and you'll know liquid because it always has a brush in it, you know, so you can apply it. I broke the tube. Here it is. You can see that has a brush inside. And there are other liquid cements that are designed for ABS and styrene and general purpose solvents. So when you come in, if you're interested in liquid cement, we can kind of direct you in the right department. So plastic models, tube cement, liquid cement. They're the two real basic types of cement. All right, so we're here at AAA Hobbies in Magnolia, New Jersey. It's Sunday afternoon live on Facebook. We're talking about glues and adhesives. So come on down to AAA. We'll get you what you need. The next type of glue I wanted to talk about was CA glue. CA glue, or CA stands for cyanoacrylate. Cyanoacrylate glues are super glues. That's what most people refer to it. That's kind of the generic term, is super glue. Super glue is an instant glue. You put it on, put the part down, and almost instantly it bonds and it becomes solid. Some faster than others. I have different types of CA glue. There's a gel form, which is kind of like the stuff you see in the store for super glue. It's kind of gel like the plastic tube cement. It's very thick, and you can put it, put drops of it on. Then there's various types of, we have what's called ZAP, and we have other super glues or CA glues. You can see right on the box, it says ZAP CA. CA comes in thin formulas. It comes in a medium thickness. It comes in a very thick, heavy formula. So depending on how you're using it, you can pick out what you like. I like thin, but like I say, it depends on what you're gluing. CA glue is good for quick temporary or quick bonds. If you're doing photo etch parts on an airplane and you need something, you put the part down and you want it to dry really fast, you would use a CA glue. CA glue is good for wood. If you're building wooden ships, wooden airplanes, you can use regular tube wooden cement. It dries very slow. You can use regular wood cement like you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot or a big box store. The super glues dry really fast. So if you're building an RC airplane or you're building a boat and you need the wood to bond quickly, CA glues are probably your best bet. When you're doing wood, you want a thick glue so it doesn't soak into the grain of the wood. When you're doing CA glue or super glue, this is another handy medium to use with it. It's accelerator. And even though super glue dries fast, the thicker the glue gets, the slower it dries, and sometimes you want it to dry instantly. This accelerator is for that. It's in a little spray bottle, so you can put the super glue down and then spray it with this and it'll instantly dry. If you're doing small parts and you want it to dry quickly and you don't want to get this all over the place, you can take the top off and use a brush to apply a little bit of this accelerator where the part is, and that helps it dry faster. So that's CA glue. And applying CA glues, usually they'll give you a little tip with the bottle. Take this apart. This is a little applicator tip. You put it on, and you can use that really fine tip to put the super glue on. I also use old X-Acto blades, and what I'll do is I get myself either a piece of glass, a piece of metal, or something I can use kind of like a pallet, which is like this here. And what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of glue on here. As you can see, I've got some super glue there. And what I'll do is I just take my X-Acto knife and I pick it up with it and then apply it to whatever I'm modeling. Say this is a part, I'll just touch it to the part. There are also tools. We sell tools for applying super glue. These are called glue loopers. And what's nice about these is they have these little openings at the end. And you dip that in the glue and it holds some of the glue, and when you touch it, it flows off of it. These are really handy and really great tools to use with super glue. So we have these in different sizes. These are the big ones for thick. We have smaller ones for thin super glue, CA glue. And last but not least, in super glues, this is something you should always have on your bench. This is debonder. And it's just what it says. It debonds super glue. So if you get your finger stuck on something, or if you put two parts together you don't want together, put some debonder on it and it'll take them apart. It breaks down the super glue. Super glue is great stuff. You have to be really careful with it. I highly recommend using safety glasses so that you don't get any in your eyes. Same with your fingers. Be really careful, because if you get super glue on your hands and touch yourself, you're going to stick to yourself. So be really careful using super glues. Super glue is kind of like the tube cement. It puts a bond in between the parts, and it's a strong bond, but it can be fragile in the sense that it can fracture if it's banged or hit. It'll break apart. If you need a bond that's a little more flexible, and I use this next type of glue for metal parts. If I have big metal pieces that I need to glue together, like miniature figures sometimes are lead and you have to glue them together, I like to use epoxy cement. Epoxy cement is a two-part cement. It's an A and a B, and you mix equal parts of it together. And you basically, I always have a little tool here, or a little base to mix my glues and things on. Or you can use cardboard. And what I'll do is I have some epoxy glue here. These are smaller tubes of the same thing. These are 5-minute epoxy. Epoxy glue. Oh, let me slow down a little bit here and let you know that we're at AAA Hobbies in Magnolia, New Jersey. This is Facebook Live on Sunday. If you have any comments or questions, leave them for me. I will be happy to answer them. And we're talking about glues and adhesives. And the store's getting noisy out there. We're talking about epoxy glue at this point. And epoxy cement is a two-part cement. And what I like about epoxy is that it's fairly flexible. So if you want to put a temporary bond on something, or if you need a little bit of time to move it around, epoxy is a really good glue. And it works great for metal. I like epoxy for metal. And the thing to note on epoxy glue is there's different times for it. This is 5-minute epoxy, which means it's going to harden in 5 minutes. It'll get solid and cured a little bit longer than that, but 5 minutes working time. You can get 15-minute epoxy, you can get 30-minute epoxy. So if you're building boats and things and you need a little bit of moving time to move parts around, you can get epoxy glue that'll give you that flexibility time-wise. And the way epoxy works is it's basically a 1-to-1 mix. And I always eyeball it. You don't have to measure it, you don't have to weigh it. You basically put two little dabs, or depending on how much glue you want to use. Put a couple dabs down the same size, like that. Always close them up when you're done. And then I keep a whole bag of popsicle sticks on my bench at all times for all different uses. These are just basic craft sticks. And I grab a craft stick and I just mix these two together. And you mix them for a minute or so, not even, about 30 seconds. And as soon as it's mixed together, it's ready to go. You can just put it on whatever it is that you're building, and you've got 5 minutes until that dries. That's how epoxy works. It's just a 1-to-1 mix. Mix it up, put it on, bang. And the thing I like about epoxy, like I say, it's flexible. I'm building an airplane model over here today. Well, not today, but all week long. And I had to temporarily put the windows in so that I could do a little bit of pre-build. And what I did was I used epoxy. I just put a dot of epoxy on the 4 corners and put the window and let it dry. And the reason I did that was I knew I could come back later and pop the window out and not damage it. And when it comes out, epoxy peels off. So if you use super glue, you're never going to get it off. And if you do, it's going to leave residue of the glue on there that you're going to have to sand and scrape. Epoxy is great. You put it on, pop the window out, and then peel off, or take a little tool, a little burnishing tool, like a toothpick, and just rub off the excess glue, and it'll come right off. So epoxy is great temporary glue and used in small, sparingly, in small amounts. So that's epoxy glue. So we've done plastic cement, we've done CA, super glue, cyanoacrylate, we've done epoxy cement. The last things I have over here, and I want to give me a minute here to clean up a little bit. I'll move this stuff out of the way. Like I say, we're here at AAA Hobbies in Magnolia, New Jersey. We are your source for glues and adhesives. We have every kind of glue under the sun here. And we have more than just model cement. If you come into our craft section, we have crafting glues, we have hot glue guns, we have things of that nature. I didn't bring them in today because, don't have time to do everything. So let me just put this stuff over here. That's your super glue. The last type of glue I wanted to talk about, and this one we kind of take for granted, but it's very useful, is white glue, or canopy cement, canopy glue. And good old, it's called aphnetic glue, or white glue. I use Elmer's for a lot of stuff, and it's some people, like I was just talking about putting windows into models, some people use this type of glue to glue their windows in, because they don't want it to frost by accident. If you use super glue on clear parts, sometimes it'll frost up. But we have what's called canopy glue. Canopy glue is clear, it dries clear, it bonds canopies and plastic parts to almost anything, and it remains flexible. Kind of like the epoxy. It's always flexible, you can get the parts back out. Revell makes a canopy cement, they call it contact clear. Zap makes canopy glue, and then you got good old Elmer's glue. So don't forget about white glue, very useful. Like I say, it doesn't attack plastic as much as some of the other glues. So if you're temporarily tacking parts in place, this is good stuff. And let's see, I got one other glue here, just called Zap Goo. Zap Goo is kind of like everything else. If you've got things like vinyl, if you've got rubber, things of that nature, you can use what's called goo. And there's various types of goo out there. Goo is basically become a generic term for your everything glue. So goo is out there, don't forget about goo. And I think that's it for plastic parts, or for glue. So I hope that gives you guys a little bit of an idea of the different types of glue that are available for modeling. Plastic cement, liquid plastic cement, CA or cyanoacrylate super glue, epoxy cement, white glue, and goo. That's what we carry here for plastic modeling and wooden modeling and so forth. If you have any questions, please leave me comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Come down to the store, AAA Hobbies in Magnolia, New Jersey. We'll take care of you, set you up with your glue when you buy your model. And until next week at Facebook Live at 1 o'clock, I will see you then.